not have the broadband. We can do it through satellite, it's expensive. So currently, we are trying to push ahead with satellite delivery, but it's not good enough. We need, particularly the newer IIMs and the smaller business schools. Incidentally, IIM Calcutta this year was ranked by Financial Times as within the top 20 business schools, and it was ranked #1 worldwide in finance, #1. And #2 in economics, second only to London School of Economics. That's the quality we want to deliver, and I think every Indian child is entitled to get it. But what is stopping it is absence of broadband. We need that 4 Mbps line. Now, the Industrial Revolution in 2 pictures, okay, left and right, you all studied it, you know that, the spinning jenny. Now, the Information Revolution in 1 picture. You must understand it in all these dictates that what the spinning jenny was, in this internet era, machine learning is it. It is not the cell phone, it is not apps, it is not PCs. Least of all is it telecom operators. Telecom operator is just the pipe. Steve Jobs had another name for him. Do you remember? I can't say it in front of him. He called them orifices. That is correct. That's what they are. Their job is to provide a pipe, and information intermediaries will, using all these methods, k-nearest neighbors, support vector machine, these are all software tools. They will deliver all the efficiency needed in modern society. So this is what we need to nurture. And today's hot subject might be web apps, or mobile apps. Tomorrow it'll change to some other device. But the productivity enhancing system is that information intermediation, which is done through these data mining techniques. One last piece. You can live through all these changes and not notice anything, which is my worry about India today, When the Industrial Revolution was going on, most of the aristocracy of that time, Jane Austen, Shelley, Keats, Wordsworth, Byron, Burke, even Adam Smith and David Ricardo were completely unaware of the times as an era of transition towards the modern world. They were completely unaware, like we are today. As a matter of fact, the term Industrial Revolution was coined by Toynbee 100 years after the event in a lecture in 1880. So keep that in mind, and since I have all of you in front of me, I cannot resist a plug for the book that I've written recently, which discusses all of these issues. Yeah? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan. As Mr. Sampitora said in the morning, we are on the threshold of a second revolution, but we don't know what it's going to be. So we are on the threshold of that revolution. May I now request Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia to make his remarks?
Thank you, Rajat. I'm painfully aware that this is meant to be a closing speech. It's not meant to be presenting any work, nor is it actually meant to present a sort of a structured assessment about this sector. But I just want to make a few comments. First of all, I want to go back and acknowledge that I'm very grateful to Rajat and ICRIER for responding to my suggestion some months ago that they should have a conference on telecom. Because, we all know that telecom and the related question of the internet and so on are widely regarded as huge productivity enhancers and drivers of change and all the rest of it. They've also been swamped in the domestic debate on huge controversies. And I thought it was important for research institutions sitting back to look at the different issues, how they're being handled, and to try and define what the issues are going ahead. I think it's particularly relevant because we are now in the middle. This year that we are about to enter is the 3rd year of the 12th five-year plan. And normally, the Planning Commission, the new Planning Commission, which will be set up when the new government takes office, is supposed to prepare a midterm appraisal. And that becomes a sort of an opportunity to look at what's happened in the first 2 years and define a policy agenda. Now, usually when this is done by the same government, the tendency is to say what a terrific job we've done and, not really call for too many policy changes. When you get a new government, then I think the likelihood that people will question whether what has been done is the right thing or maybe take some new initiatives, that incentive will be greater. And certainly I think that whoever is running the Planning Commission after the end of May should take a deep interest in what are the policy issues for the future in the area of telecom and related subjects. I think it's also timely because some of the kind of early controversies are actually behind us, in the sense that the whole country was galvanized or energized or whatever by the CAG report on the revenue loss, etc., for not following a system of allocating by spectrum by auction. And I'd suggested to Rajat that, in fact, the government went back to the Supreme Court and sort of said, well, look, what do you think? I mean, do all these things have to be allocated only by auction? And, when faced with that question, the court said, no, you have to defend whatever decision you take. It doesn't follow that it has to be by auction. That doesn't matter because the government had actually decided that it was going to auction spectrum. And I said to Rajat that, most people in the government think that auction is one thing. But actually, there are many, many different ways of structuring an auction. And in the internal discussions, it was quite clear to me that, we, including me, were not actually adequately informed. That's just one aspect of it. So I thought that, what would be good out of this conference is if ICRIER is able to put together an agenda of the kind of issues that the new Planning Commission should take a position on when it prepares the midterm appraisal. And we, of course, although the actual decision-making at the level of the members and the deputy chairman will be taken by the new commission, I have actually asked the Planning Commission to initiate the process so that, if you like, the official level work needed to run up to an MTA is all done. Otherwise you have a situation where a new Planning Commission appointed in June, then they have all sorts of, there's a lot of familiarization. And if they then start to think about a midterm appraisal, then it would just get horribly delayed. This way, most of the work which is preparatory will have been done, though all the strategic decisions will be left to the new commission. And I think if ICRIER, building on this conference, and maybe even interacting with the participants at somewhat greater length, wants to prepare such an input. In fact, it doesn't have to be a confidential input. It can be an ICRIER policy paper on telecom. You stick it on your website and have a discussions on it and make it an input. I think that would be extremely useful. So then I said to myself that, what is it that I kind of think of as the issues and where do we stand on some of them? Well, one of the issues, the role of telecom, we won't have to have any dispute about. Everybody agrees it's very important. A point that I think Mr. Balakrishnan made just now is not adequately understood, that, while, there are two things. We've certainly seen a great boom in mobile telephony. We don't seem to be acknowledging that so has everyone else. So, while mobile penetration in India is quite high, looks impressively high, it's more penetration than there is for toilets, as people keep telling us. As a percentage, we're not actually doing better than some of our neighbors even. So everybody now has these very high penetration rates. There's nothing wrong with that, in the sense that I'm just saying that it's not something exceptional that we're achieving. What is exceptional is the very low penetration of the internet, which I think was brought out very nicely in this slide. And that is not generally widely known. I think some of the points that were made, we need to go into why that is so. Clearly, one reason it's so is simply that that's a more expensive service. And if there isn't that much content to access, etc., your population, which is going to be interested in it, is going to be much smaller. I mean, for example, if the bottom 50% of the population can make do with all the connectivity it needs, basically through SMSs, then you don't expect them at this stage anyway to go to the internet. In which case your internet penetration immediately goes to 20% of the relevant population, because it's only half of the total population. But I think we should have some sense that allowing for all these things, are we doing enough? Now, I think it's totally clear that in terms of the infrastructure that is needed, the optic fiber connectivity, we are not. And I think when I agree with the picture that was presented, that if we really want to make this inexpensive, we do need to roll out OFC. Fortunately, there is a program in place, and I mean, they keep telling me that basically they're going to take the optic fiber network down to the Gram Panchayat level. I think they're supposed to cover approximately 100,000 Gram Panchayats by 2014, and then expand beyond that. And then, as I understand it, once it's at the Gram Panchayat level, Wi-Fi connectivity will enable you to connect with other things, and also that the network itself is not going to be exclusive, so anybody can use it, and that's very important. I mean, it'll truly be an infrastructure. But of course, it'll only be useful if people are actually in a position that the services they need and want are actually being delivered. And that's a separate issue. I mean, one can take the view that the whole of the private sector will somehow make sure everybody will be buying things on Flipkart, or that educational institutions will do things, or that health institutions will do things, etc., etc. But I think there's no question that the OFC part should be done, and it would be quite interesting to get an assessment that, do you think that's being done in the right way? That's point number one. I mean, a related issue, if you look at the sector, is what are we going to do about BSNL and MTNL? Because actually what has happened is that with the, not the demise, but the hugely reduced importance of landline connectivity, you've got a huge number of private players, very aggressive, who are essentially dominating the mobile space. And you've got BSNL and MTNL hugely overstaffed, running a landline operation, which is not only more maintenance intensive, but they're running it in a very old-fashioned way and have an enormous amount of people, much more than they really need or can sustain. And I mean, that's an interesting challenge for the government. I mean, right now, both these organizations are running huge losses. They need to be able to pay pensions and this, that, and the other. And the government is going to have to do some bailing out. But it would be interesting from ICRIER's perspective. I mean, whoever's writing this policy paper, what guidance are you giving to the government about the future of MTNL and BSNL? That's an issue. I think for the rest, over the last couple of years, after being initially swamped by a general negative feeling about the scam and all this kind of stuff, I think government has got its act together and at least moved to a system of allocation that is not being questioned. Some people might say that we're not designing the auctions in the best possible way. Also, some people might say that how you design the auction depends on what your primary objective is. I believe Aruna discussed that in the morning. And I think it's interesting to see Are there lessons here for the future? Or is it simply an academic exercise about the past? But whatever it is, I think the process of allocating spectrum in a non-controversial way certainly seems to have been established, and I think that's a very positive development. There are other areas which were relevant. You had to deal with the issues of mergers and acquisitions. Some decisions have been taken in that regard. Some of the guidelines that were in place 2 or 3 years ago have now been modified. I think it will be very